I opened my banking app and stared at the negative balance. 8 years of secret savings gone. And the only name on the transfer was my father's. Before everything fell apart, I used to think of myself as a quiet, predictable guy. The type of son who never caused trouble, never raised his voice, never made waves. I grew up in one of those neighborhoods where the lawns were trimmed the same length, the mailboxes were all the same model, and every family put on the same suburban smile. I blended in perfectly. I wasn't the black sheep. I was the invisible one, the kid who stayed in line because stepping out felt like a threat, not an option. I worked straight out of high school, held down boring jobs, saved every dollar like it mattered more than oxygen, and I convinced myself that being easy was a virtue. For years, that was who I was, the dependable son. The one who'd pick up the slack. The one who'd get called first when something broke. The one who'd rearrange his entire week because my dad didn't feel like driving to his own appointment. I told myself it was love, or loyalty, or just the role I'd been born into. But looking back now, I can see it clearly. I wasn't the son. I was the spare tool in the garage, always within reach, always expected to work, never acknowledged unless something needed fixing. And the worst part? I accepted it. I thought that was normal. I thought being useful was the closest I'd ever get to being valued. I didn't know that this quiet acceptance, this numb obedience, was the soil my father's betrayal was growing in long before I ever realized anything was wrong. My family looked picture perfect from the outside. My dad was the kind of man who shook hands like he was sealing a business deal, even when it was just a neighbor saying hello. He spoke loudly, laughed loudly, and bragged loudly, usually about things I did, but somehow twisted into accomplishments of his own. "My boy helped me fix the deck," he'd say, when he'd sat in a lawn chair while I did all the work. "We've been saving smart as a family," he'd tell people, even though he hadn't saved a cent since the Bush administration. My mom kept the peace, but in that silent, tight smiled way that made you feel like peace was a fragile vase we weren't allowed to breathe near. I grew up learning that disappointment should be swallowed, that emotions were burdens, and that speaking up was a luxury none of us could afford. My dad's word was final, even when it was wrong, especially when it was wrong. And the weirdest part is, it only looked toxic when you stepped far enough back to see the cracks. Up close, it blended into everyday life the same way a stain blends into carpet, ugly, but familiar. I was the good kid, the reliable one, the one who made his life easier. And when you spend your whole life being rewarded for being silent, compliant, predictable, you don't realize how much you're being trained to accept the unacceptable. It didn't happen all at once. It never does. It started with little things, like my dad borrowing money and forgetting to pay it back. Or needing a ride and refusing to take an Uber because that's a waste of money, even though it wasted my time. Then it moved to bigger things, guilt-tripping me into covering bills he, unexpectedly, forgot. Asking me to skip work to help him move furniture he could have hired someone for, and telling me I owed him for raising me. He had a phrase he used constantly: "Family helps family." Except in our family, help only flowed one direction. I remember 3 years ago when my car broke down. I needed it for work. I panicked, worried, stressed, but I didn't ask anyone for help. I scraped the repair costs together myself. But when my dad's truck needed repairs, suddenly I was the ungrateful son for not offering money right away. Or the time he told my uncle I was doing well, because I was lucky to live under my roof. My roof? I paid rent, quietly, on time, every month. I didn't see the manipulation then. I just called it normal. Looking back now, I can see the truth. Every favor was expected, every sacrifice demanded, and every boundary considered disrespect. I didn't realize it yet, but I was already breaking. Piece by piece. The one thing that kept me going, the one thing that felt like it truly belonged to me, was my savings account. I opened it quietly 8 years ago, on my lunch break from my first job. I never told anyone, especially not my father. It was the one sliver of independence I guarded like a secret door out of the life I felt trapped in. Every paycheck, no matter how small, I'd move something over. $20, $50, $100 when I could. Birthdays, bonuses, tax returns, I tucked them away. Each deposit was more than money, it was hope. My exit plan, my chance to move out, start a life that was mine, not just an extension of my father's ego. I fantasized about it sometimes at night, driving across state lines, getting an apartment with uneven floors and noisy neighbors, eating whatever I wanted without being criticized for spending frivolously. I imagined the silence of a home where every decision was mine, where I could breathe. That savings account wasn't just dollars, it was 8 years of breathing room. 8 years of quiet rebellion. 8 years of building something for me. Something I thought was safe. Something I believed no one could take. Or so I thought. 2 months before everything blew up, my dad started making comments that didn't register at the time. Little remarks about money, little jokes that somehow felt aimed at me. Things like, "Funny how some people live under the same roof but act like strangers." Or, "You think you got secrets I don't know about." He'd laugh afterward, but it wasn't a real laugh. It was sharp, studying me, like he was fishing for a reaction. Then there were the nights he'd stay up later than usual, sitting in the living room with the TV off, scrolling on his phone with this weird expression, focused, calculating. Whenever I walked in, he'd lock the phone instantly. And the biggest red flag, my mom acting strange, nervous, jumping whenever I walked into a room, looking between me and my dad like she was holding a secret that wasn't hers. But I didn't connect the dots. I didn't even realize there were dots. I thought things were just tense. Or maybe they were arguing about something private. But unease lingered in the house like humidity, heavy, invisible, hard to breathe through. One night, I heard my name through the vents. My parents whispering. My father saying, "He'll get over it." My mother replying, "It's still wrong." And my father snapping, "Family helps family." I should have asked questions. I didn't. And that silence cost me everything. The morning before everything collapsed, my dad asked me a bizarre question. "You trust me, right?" It came out of nowhere, no context, no lead in. Just those 4 words. I remember freezing, confused. "Yeah, I guess. Why?" He shrugged, pretending it didn't matter. Just making conversation. But his eyes told me otherwise. They lingered on me like he was waiting for something, permission, maybe. Or forgiveness in advance. Later that day, he asked if he could use my laptop because his was acting up. I didn't think anything of it. It didn't even occur to me that my banking app autofilled on that device. I handed it over like an idiot. He took it into the garage and shut the door. He was gone for 30 minutes. When he returned, he handed the laptop back with this casual, almost satisfied look, like something was finally off his plate. At the time, it didn't click. But hindsight is cruel. The betrayal had already begun. The real destruction didn't hit like lightning. It seeped in slow, like smoke. Thick, choking, impossible to ignore once it finally fills the room. I was standing in the doorway of our shared office, the one place I used to feel proud of, the one place where my hours of work and sacrifice finally lived outside my head. My heart was beating in this uneven, stuttering rhythm that felt too loud for the silence I walked into. And there he was, Ethan, hunched over my computer. My computer. His shoulders tightened the moment he heard me step in, but he didn't turn around. He didn't have to. I already felt the wrongness radiating off him like heat. I said his name cautiously, like I was afraid it might shatter something fragile in the air. He flinched. Slowly, painfully slowly, he minimized something. He thought I didn't notice, and then spun around in my chair like he owned it. Like he owned everything. And the look on his face? That false concern, that soft sympathetic tilt of his head he used whenever he wanted to deflect. I felt bile rise in my throat. "Hey," he said calmly, like nothing in the world was wrong. "You're home early." That's when I saw it, a folder open on the screen behind him. My name, my project, my work, my identity. But it wasn't just open. It was uploaded. He followed my gaze and sighed. A slow, rehearsed sigh. "Okay," he muttered, "look, we need to talk." He moved aside, finally revealing the truth. An email draft with my entire project attached, addressed to a company he had secretly applied to. My portfolio, labeled as his. My design, titled under his name. My work, stolen pixel by pixel. I felt the floor tilt. The breath leave my body. The sound in my ears fade into a high, sharp ringing. "You weren't using it," he said quietly, as if that made any sense. Then he added the knife that twisted everything inside me. "You should thank me. This will finally get us somewhere." I stared at him, really stared, and saw a stranger where the man I trusted should have been. My voice was shaking so violently it didn't feel like mine when I whispered, "You stole from me." He leaned back, arms crossed, smirk forming like he'd been waiting to say this. "You gave up the second you started doubting yourself. I'm just doing what you couldn't." And that was it. My world didn't collapse because he stole my work. It collapsed because he believed I owed it to him. I don't remember leaving the office. I don't remember walking to my car. I don't even remember driving home. My body moved on autopilot while my mind replayed his voice like a broken record. "You should thank me. I'm doing what you couldn't. You weren't using it." By the time I reached my apartment, my hands were trembling so badly that I had to sit in the parking lot for 10 whole minutes before I could breathe normally. My chest ached, a deep, crushing ache like something was pressing down on my ribs from the inside. I felt stupid, humiliated, used, but more than anything, I felt empty, like something had been scooped out of me without anesthesia. Inside, I collapsed onto the couch, head in my hands. The apartment felt unfamiliar, like I was suddenly a guest in my own space. Every shadow felt sharper, every sound too loud. I stared at the ceiling until tears slipped out without warning. Silent, hot, relentless. I replayed every moment of our relationship. How many times he convinced me I was overreacting. How many times he positioned himself as the victim. How many times he let me doubt myself just enough for him to step in and save us. I wondered how long he'd been planning this. How long he'd seen me not as a partner, but a stepping stone. At some point, my phone buzzed. One text from him. "We'll talk tonight. Don't do anything dramatic." And that was when the emptiness inside me hardened into something else. Something sharp. Something steady. Not revenge, not yet. Just clarity. For the first time in months, I saw him exactly as he was. And I knew what I had to do next. Revenge isn't loud. It starts in the quiet. I spent the next few hours with the blinds half closed, the room dim enough to steady my thoughts. My heartbeat finally slowed, my breathing deepened, the fog in my head cleared, piece by piece. I opened my laptop and pulled up everything, my saved drafts, my original designs, my time-stamped files, all the proof I needed. It felt mechanical at first, like I wasn't doing anything meaningful. But with every screenshot, every recorded timestamp, every email trail, I felt my power return molecule by molecule. This time, I wasn't shaky. I wasn't crying. I wasn't begging for an explanation. I was building a plan. A quiet, calculated plan. I backed up everything to an external drive. I printed my proof. I sorted it into folders. I made copies. Then I drafted my own email to the same company he tried to scam using my work. I wrote clearly, professionally, and attached every piece of evidence. My finger hovered over send only for a second. Then I clicked it. And I felt nothing but relief. By the time the sun set, the calm inside me felt like armor. I knew he'd come over soon, storming through the door with excuses, manipulations, and all the emotional theatrics he relied on. But something had shifted. He had broken something I'd never rebuild, and freed something inside me I never knew existed. He showed up at exactly 8:11 p.m., the kind of punctuality men only have when they're ready to gaslight you into submission. He didn't knock gently, he pounded on the door like he was entitled to be let in. "Open up," he snapped. "This is ridiculous." But when I opened the door, the expression on his face shifted instantly. Not because he felt guilty. Not because he cared. Because he saw it. The folders on the table. The printed emails. The external drive. Evidence. His jaw tightened. "What did you do?" I didn't answer immediately. I let the silence stretch, let him feel small in it. Finally, I said softly, "Exactly what you did to me." He tried everything: frustration, laughter, guilt trips, even soft pleading. "Babe, you misunderstood. You're acting crazy. I was going to tell you. It's not a big deal. You owe me for everything I've done for us. You're throwing away our future." But I didn't move. I didn't break. I didn't flinch. Every sentence he spat out crumbled at my feet. For the first time ever, I watched him panic. For the first time ever, he realized he had no power left. We sat across from each other, the room dim except for the soft glow of a single lamp. I could hear him breathing hard, trying to position himself as the wounded party. "So this is it," he scoffed. "You're just gonna ruin me?" I looked at him, really looked, and years of swallowed words pushed their way up my throat. "You ruined yourself," I said quietly. "You did that the moment you decided my work was yours. The moment you decided my talent was yours. The moment you convinced yourself I existed to carry your dreams while you clipped mine." He winced like each sentence landed physically. "You used me," I continued. "You drained me. You dimmed me. You took every insecurity I confessed to you and repurposed it into leverage." His eyes glossed, not out of remorse, but out of fear. "You don't get to rewrite what you did," I said. "Not anymore." He didn't respond. He just stared. Because there was nothing left for him to say. He tried one last time. One final manipulation. He reached for my hand and whispered, "We can fix this, don't throw us away." But when his hand touched mine, I felt nothing. No warmth. No nostalgia. No ache. Just absence. That was my breaking point. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Just clarity. I stood up, grabbed the spare key off the counter, and placed it gently into his palm. "You need to leave," I said. His face twisted, disbelief shifting into anger, then into a kind of desperate confusion that would have once broken me. Not tonight. He stepped back slowly, shaking his head like his world was collapsing. Maybe it was. But mine? Mine was finally rebuilding. When the door shut behind him, the silence felt sacred. 3 months passed. My apartment felt bigger now. Brighter, lighter. I rearranged the furniture, bought new mugs, hung art on the walls that matched my taste. Every corner of my home felt like a reclamation, a quiet, deliberate declaration of freedom. I got the job, the one he tried to steal. They said my work spoke for itself. They said my honesty impressed them. They said I had a future. For the first time in a long time, I believed them. The panic attacks faded. My laughter returned. My appetite returned. My confidence flickered back to life like a spark reigniting a long-abandoned fire. And then one morning, as I sipped my coffee by the window, watching the snow fall softly outside, I realized something. I wasn't healing for him. I was healing from him. It was late afternoon when my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. I answered. His voice. Small, broken, uncertain. Hey, can we talk? For a moment, my breath caught. Not because I wanted him back, but because I realized something unbelievable. I felt nothing. No anger. No longing. No ache. No fear. Just distance. I'm sorry, he said. For everything. I was stupid. I messed up. I didn't think you'd actually leave. My heart didn't even twitch. I wish you well, I said gently. But I've closed that chapter. There was silence. Heavy. Final. Unmistakably real. Okay, he whispered. I get it. When the call ended, I sat there for a long time, holding the quiet like a warm blanket. And I smiled, a small, private smile, because the girl who once doubted herself, the girl he tried to dim, the girl he tried to overwrite. She didn't just recover. She rose. And that was the closure I never expected, the quiet kind, the peaceful kind, the kind that doesn't need applause or revenge or validation. Just distance. Just truth. Just freedom. The same freedom I found the moment I finally chose myself.